Hello and welcome. I am Exit Light, and this is my podcast. This week's podcast has me with my guest host, Rob. Hello, Rob. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. Good evening, good night, wherever you are. World.
We will have, of course, moderator Maya and producer Jeremy, who starting this week, you will be able to hear him talk to us when we ask him a question.
Hello.
And you'll know for sure that we're not crazy. I want to tell everybody that next week, Jory will be here with me in my living room, and we will be having a podcast. We don't know what it's on yet, but I'm sure it's going to be interesting. And then I wanted to tell you that starting August 1st, we are going to have a 5-week series of podcasts that have to do with the 9/11 conspiracy theories.
Dun, dun.
Dun, 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 dun. Now, I want to say this from the very beginning. We are not saying that these conspiracies are true. We are going to present these opinions, and I, in the moon landing, am going to present rebuttals, and we are just going to be talking about people's ideas. So hopefully we can play devil's advocate during this as well, and everyone can go away feeling like we've given them some at the very least, some interesting things to talk about, to think about, and that you've been entertained for a while. We're not trying to change your mind or sway your opinion. Comments, as always, are welcome, but some topics can get more heated than others, and we just ask that everyone is respectful and keep in mind that we are all in this together, and thank God we are not restricted to thinking in a box. So we can all have ideas and comments, but please don't call people names and treat them disrespectfully for having an opinion that is different than yours. There are things that I think everybody sees as black and white, whatever that is in your life. There are things I see as black and white, but I try for other topics. Like I will say, I think that hurting a child is in the black and white category, but there are topics that are absolutely, in my mind, able to be gray. And these types of topics are one of those topics. So if these are in your black and white area, if you could just maybe listen to what we're saying and consider the information and other people's opinions, and you still walk away in a black and white area, great. That's fine. And I just want us to be understanding that we can all have opinions or thoughts, and it can also be entertainment at the same time. Do you agree with that, Rob?
I agree 100%.
Okay. All right. I am really excited about the 9/11 podcasts. I'll tell you guys that what we're going to do is we're going to do it in chronological order. So each of us, including Jeremy, has a segment that we are each going to do our homework on. So that's why it's going to, and then at the end, we're going to have a segment where we all just talk about the immense information that we're all, summarize everything and just talk about it all and try and pull it together for everybody. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I know that's going to be and is possible to be a hot button issue. We're not going to approach it in that manner. And we, of course, will allow everybody to post their comments in the comments and their opinions in the opinions. And if there's anything throughout this or any podcast that you think needs to have attention drawn to it right that second, Maya will alert Jeremy. Jeremy will tell us, and we will address it as always. But if things ever get heated and people are being rude, then that will not be addressed. Fair warning. Okay. How is that? Look at me. I was like the mean school marm for a minute. I liked it.
Me.
I can't help it. I said marm. School marm. Is that what you guys say? What are your school teachers called?
Teachers.
Oh. Okay, fine. I was like a strict school teacher for a moment. Behave yourselves.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're funny like that, calling things what they are.
Are you? That's so weird, but yet a semi-truck is called a what? Trolley?
A
lolly? A lolly.
Lorry.
A lolly.
Not a lorry, a lorry, Lorry.
Oh, Lori. Okay, we call Lori a girl's name.
Okay.
So, we're a little bit different. I still do like mooching around, though. That's my favorite thing. I do enjoy that. All right. So, we are going to try and cover several topics today. And cross your fingers. We're going to talk about, on my end, the moon landing and chemtrails. These poor chemtrails, they have been left off so many times now that they're just like, forget it. We're just going to poison you and you guys just take it. Rob is going to talk about if the royal family or anybody wanted Princess Diana dead. He is going to talk about crop circles. And he is going to bring around how the royal family and being lizard people has something to do with Princess Diana's death. So, let's get ready because I know us, Rob. We're going to talk a lot.
Okay.
Feel free to go.
Thank you for that introduction. It took 18 hours. Okay. Lady Diana. How much do you know about Lady Diana in the States, Tracy?
Okay, I can tell you this. This is so embarrassing. We know so much about Lady Diana that I actually wrote, no, this is a true story. I actually wrote to People magazine and had my comment printed in their magazine, and for the first time ever, the editors responded to a letter to the editor, and that was to me. And what I wrote was, I would rather be tied to a stick in the desert, covered in honey, with bamboo sticks put under my nails, standing on an anthill full of red ants, than to have another article about Princess Diana ever again. And unfortunately, she died the next week. So didn't I look like an asshole?
We've just killed my podcast.
Oh. Well, but that's been a minute. So, I might not know everything you know. We were just fascinated by, in America, it's more fascinated by, look what she's wearing.
Yeah.
And things like, oh, look at her hair. She wore a new dress. Oh, she's getting a divorce. And it's just mostly gossip. I don't know Princess Diana as a princess, obviously, like you do, because she was your princess.
Yeah. Okie dokie. It's been about 20 years now since Lady Diana and Dodi Fayed died in the French tunnel at the car crash. The security cameras, for some reason, didn't work that night in the tunnel, so there's no actual footage of the crash or what exactly happened. Yeah. She was, they were being, in the car, there was her, Dodi, her boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
They were sat in the back, in the front was the driver, whose name I've tried to find and I just cannot find it. And in the passenger seat was her bodyguard. He was an ex-military guy.
Okay.
Some people believe it was just a tragic accident, but there's lots and lots of people that think it's a conspiracy. People think that. Go on, sorry, Tracy.
I was just going to say, wasn't the original story that they were running away from paparazzi or something?
Yeah, they were. Sorry, I forgot about that fact. Yes, they were. They went out of the back entrance of the hotel, and they jumped in the car, and they were racing away from the scene. Some paparazzi were following them on, I think, mopeds or scooters, and they went into the tunnel, and no one came out of the tunnel. We don't know why. In fact, the bodyguard did survive, but he had really, really severe injuries, but he did survive.
Can I add something right here?
Yeah.
I was awake when that announcement came on that she had been in a bad car accident. It did. Now, she was alive. I don't know if this is true or not, so I'll defer to you. But we heard that she was alive for a little while in the car. So that was our first information. But when I found out that she had died, and then it was just a few weeks later, I think, that JFK's son died in a plane crash. And I don't know why, but those two, like, sometimes people in the news die, and it's not really a shocking thing, and sometimes it really hits you hard. And that when Princess Diana died, even though I complained about hearing about her, that was shocking to me. I think, I don't know, it was so sad, and to see her boys left alone without a mom, that was just very shocking and really sad.
Yeah. It's sort of 50-50 here, I think. We see, the royal family is so far detached from the normal man on the street.
Yeah.
We can't really, we're like you, I suppose. We just read the media, and we can't really comprehend the facts, the kind of life that they live, and the splendor, and we have to pay for all that out of our taxes.
You do?
To let them live in luxury. So a lot of people are quite. There's two sides to the argument. One is, well, they bring a lot of money in. American tourists from around the world want to go and take a look at the Buckingham Palace. They want to watch the changing of the guard, which I've actually done when I was in the army. And the figures of how much money they live on, I can't even begin to. It's astronomical. It's absolutely astronomical. And whether that maybe that equals itself out with how much money they bring into the country, I can't really see it myself. But I don't know. But that's where we are with the royal family, and still today, really. I mean, we had the marriage, didn't we, the other week of
yes.
Meghan. We've talked about that a lot, haven't we?
Yes, Meghan Markle.
Meghan Markle, that's the lady's name. And I don't think I've seen it, she's been on a couple of sort of royal duties, and with the Queen. We've got a horse racing thing on at the moment called Ascot. It's Royal Ascot, and the Queen always attends. She has her own racehorses.
Yes.
And Harry and Meghan were there. Obviously, everybody's dressed up ridiculously. And to me, she looked a little bit like a fox in the headlights, or a rabbit in the headlights. I don't think she realised how much she's going to be scrutinised. I think there's a level with famous celebrities in the States and famous people in famous actors and actresses, and they get a lot of publicity from the media. But I don't think she was. I don't think she realised how much she's going to be in the public eye.
Well, no, and she wasn't the kind of actress that drew that kind of attention either. So, she wasn't a Tom Cruise or I don't know why I can't pull anybody out of my head right now, but I mean, I literally hadn't heard of her until she was engaged to Harry, and just recently went and looked up the TV show that she's on, which, by the way, I've become addicted to, and I hate myself for it. You do, but yeah. So I don't think and it's funny you said that, because I thought the same thing when I saw her in those pictures. That I don't think, because they taught her the princess how to sit like the princess with your legs to the side and crossed at the ankle, and she wasn't doing that before, and now she is, and I think it's a shock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll get back to Lady Diana. Some people believe that the Queen had something to do with her getting killed. They believe that she was actually killed. The conspiracy theories are that she was pregnant with Dodi's baby, and Dodi, Fayed, and his family are Muslim. And if the child was ever to be born, this child would be brought up as a Muslim, and the Queen was never ever going to wear that at all.
So in England, that would be frowned upon.
It would be frowned upon if you marry a Catholic.
The royal family.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but she wouldn't be part of the family anymore. If she was getting divorced, would that still matter?
Well, she'd still be a princess.
Oh, and she'd still be the mother of the future king.
Yeah, the future king.
And the Fayeds were really rich, right? Didn't the father own Harrods?
Yeah, he still does own Harrods. He has been fighting for years to get British citizenship, and he keeps being refused.
Really?
Yeah, they won't. He doesn't get on well with the royal family. He never has, even before this happened. But he is, and he tried. See, this is what really, really got me wondering about this whole Lady Diana conspiracy. At first, when she died, and obviously his son died, he was really, really in the media and in the public eye, and wanting to know this and wanting to know that, and wanted, he wanted the truth. And as he was saying, he thought there was it was all a big conspiracy and it was all a load of lies. And then all of a sudden, Tracy, he just went quiet.
Right.
Like overnight. Now, I don't know if that, maybe, obviously I don't know the reason why, but if you'd lost your son or daughter and you believed that there was some kind of foul play, you would never let that, I would never let that go.
No, me either. No.
So I don't
Especially being in the position he's in, which is he has a platform. He's in the position to be in the public eye and have the press show up because of who he is. So, especially if I had that kind of a platform, I would use it every single day.
And it's believed that, Lady Diana's family, the Spencers, because she was Diana Spencer before she married Prince Charles, the Spencer family and the Queen's family, the Queen's bloodline, there's something, there's a lot of history there, to say. There's a lot of history there. And this is, I don't want to say too much now because I'm going to give away my other part of the podcast, but when I do my other part of the podcast, it will all make sense. Another thing that was blamed, the driver, he was a Frenchman, and he was seen on CCTV drinking a glass of wine,
right?
Which is supposed to be absolutely forbidden if you're driving anyway.
Was he killed? I can't remember.
Yeah, he died.
Okay.
There was CT. It wasn't very good. It was very grainy, the footage of this. Get me words right. It was really, really bad quality. The CCTV, the moon landing the photographs are better quality.
Mm-hmm.
But who's to say that glass was it could have been a glass of apple juice, it could have been a glass of water, it could have been a glass of all sort of anything. It didn't necessarily have to be wine.
Right.
So when the crash happened and the bodies, what you said before about Diana, she was alive.
Okay.
Because people caught up with her. People caught up with the car. Some paparazzi caught, and the police got there in absolute seconds. It was unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
They were there within sort of a couple of minutes, and people have gone on record and said that she was alive and she was talking and she was breathing and she was talking, not the other way around. And that's all been denied. That's all been denied.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And the driver, when he was autopsied, he was supposed to have been well over the limit.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. He was supposed to have had 1.75 grams, which in the U.S. would be a blood alcohol reading of 0.175%, which is very, very high.
Well, his family have come out and said he didn't drink. He wasn't
really?
a drink. So that's one of the. That's another one of the conspiracies. It's conspiracy it's conspiracy on conspiracy on conspiracy as far as Lady Diana is concerned. Lady Diana had spoken to some of close friends, and she had, obviously before she died, she said she was going to be killed by persons unknown. So Diana believed that there were people out there that were going to try and kill her. Allegedly, Diana had sent a letter to her butler, who was supposedly he called himself. He said that Diana used to call him her rock. His name was Paul Burrell. He got a little bit of celebrity because of this. He never released or put the note out, but he had an absolute house full of Lady Diana's personal possessions, which he said she had given him. Now,
I think that I read in the news that he tried to get in to Prince Harry's and Meghan Markle's wedding. Yeah, okay, that's the guy. Okay.
He's an horrible little shit.
Mm-hmm.
If you're listening, by the way, sorry.
No, you're not. It's all right.
But at the end of the day, with all the conspiracies and all the truths and untruths, Lady Diana said that she was ultimately going to get killed, and she was basically true. She did end up dying.
What makes people think that she was pregnant? Had she told anybody this? Did they ever release an autopsy of Princess Diana?
I think they did, but a lot of it was blacked out.
Redacted.
Redacted, that's the word. Yeah, I couldn't think of the word. She had told close girlfriends, that she had a really, really, really close girlfriend, and she had supposedly told her, but everybody went quiet. Everybody had loads to say for a couple of months, and then it went quiet. And I could never understand that, why people wouldn't stick up for her. But you never know. If she was killed, then I suppose you can understand people wanting to not be in the line of fire, so to speak.
Yeah, because if they can kill Princess Diana, they can kill you.
Yeah. So that basically is the conspiracy. Some of the conspiracies. There's hundreds more about Lady Diana, but another reason that she may have been killed is going to be in my royal family one in a little while, which I don't want to give away.
Well, I can't remember how long her and Dodi Fayed even dated. Was it a long time?
Not really, no. It wasn't a very long time, but some of the stories that were about before she died and when she was with Charles, it, she had everything you could ever want, but a lot of it was like mental torture.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know looks aren't everything, but why would you want to get rid of Lady Diana and marry a woman with a face like a melted welly? She is horrible. Camilla Parker Bowles, honestly. She looks like a donkey.
Donkey? Well, the heart wants what the heart wants, Rob. I mean, maybe he likes donkeys. I mean, it's not like he's a catch.
I know. Look at them ears. You probably can hear us now talking.
Probably. You know, I feel sorry for Princess Diana. I think that the marriage was sort of arranged, wasn't it? Wasn't Charles basically told that this is who you're going to marry? Because hadn't Camilla been divorced or was currently married or something? I can't remember what.
I think she got divorced. I think there was an affair.
Oh, well, yeah, because remember the letters came out where he wrote to her and said, "I wish I could be your tampon."
Oh.
Yeah. He's not a brilliant one, that one.
No, that's not a real chat line, is it, really?
No.
It's never worked for me.
Me either. It happens all the time, too. It's like, oh my God, just stop. I can, also, if she was pregnant, her and Dodi weren't married. So this was real unbecoming behavior of the mother of the future king.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for her.
Yeah, and I feel sorry for. Well, there was rumours as well about Prince Harry.
Yes, his parentage.
Diana was really friendly with an army officer called James Hewitt, and I'm sure I've got his name right. Just people in the chat will know probably better than me. But if you look at photographs of him now, Harry at the same age that Harry is now, they're like twins.
I'm looking it up. Oh wow, that is really crazy.
You look at William, and he's definitely Charles's son.
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
Oh yeah, I can see the.
Yeah, can you? So that would have been an affair that Diana had.
Yeah.
But,
wow. That was a dysfunctional family.
Exactly. I mean, Diana had to, whenever she saw the Queen, she had to curtsy and call her mom, and it must have been horrible. You wouldn't feel like you were living in your own home.
That's what I was gonna say, and they lived there too, right?
Yeah. I do feel sorry for her because it must have been hell on earth having to go through all of this.
Yeah.
But there are conspiracies that she's still alive. Some conspiracies say that she's still alive and she just wanted out.
Really? But her boys, man, they went through a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't imagine she would do that to her boys.
I mean, there was rumours that the Queen wasn't even going to go to her funeral.
Really?
Yeah, but she did in the end. I think she knew that if she didn't go to the funeral then, it would be crazy. And she would have gotten so much bad publicity that she had to go in the end and show her face. But Lady Diana didn't like the Queen. The Queen didn't like her. She didn't like Prince Philip. Nobody likes Prince Philip.
Prince Philip is a jerk.
Oh, he's so inappropriate what he says to people.
You know, and, well, this is way off topic, but the Queen, having been cheated on several times by Prince Philip, you would have think that she would have been more upset with Charles than Diana.
Yeah.
But anyway. All right, so what do you think? Do you think somebody tried to kill her?
Yeah.
On purpose? Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to go do your podcast, your first one now? Or do you do yours now and then I'll come back to my other one in a bit, Phil.
You can go back. You can go do the lizard one if it connects.
Oh, yeah, it does connect. Are you sure you don't mind?
No, I don't mind.
Okay. People in the UK will know a gentleman called David Icke. Have you heard of David Icke?
Yep, I have.
He was a footballer originally when he was young, but he had a really bad knee injury. So he started working for the BBC as a sports presenter, and he was on telly all the time to do with the sports. He was on a program one day in the 1990s, and he just came out with this, that the royal family of lizards, shape-shifting, baby-eating, blood-drinking lizards. And everybody in the world was like, everybody's jaw just hit the floor. Because he wasn't on this program to talk about lizards or anything.
Right.
But, right. So David Icke, this is a little bit of his thinking, and I'll try and explain this as easily as I can because it's quite complicated. David Icke feels that this alien-human hybrid bloodline goes back thousands and thousands of years, even before Jesus. Most people have heard the Bible story when Jesus and his disciples were sleeping in the Garden of Gethsemane, just before Judas came and kissed Jesus and shit on him, basically.
Oh my gosh.
So while Jesus had asked the disciples to stay awake and to pray with him, but they all fell asleep. Now, if you remember the Jesus story, there's the devil, Satan, appears to Jesus, and it is often said that the devil came in the form of a snake. It's a huge snake. Now, a lot of people, like David Icke, think that certain points through history, this was one of the alien-human hybrids that was trying to get Jesus to turn against God. And there'd be no Christian religion, would there now? There'd be nothing.
Right.
Some people, obviously this is a real big long shot, but there have been other times, like when Jesus was in the desert, 40 days and 40 nights, he got tempted by Satan. Satan came as another type of reptile. These reptiles weren't so much like snakes. They had little feet. They were like lizards more than anything else. And since you go back as far as the Garden of Eden, when
yes,
the snake had little. It was like a lizard, and because
yes,
the, God's punishment was for the snake for doing what the snake did. He said that the snake, you will have to move around on your belly for the rest of time, and took the legs away.
Rob, I tell people that all the time, that it wasn't a serpent in the Garden of Eden, because the punishment for whatever was talking to Eve in the garden was to remove its legs. So it was a lizard
Yeah,
of some sort. It was not a snake. People like don't well, they like hear a story, but they don't really hear the details. And the details in that particular story matter, because it was not a snake. He was punished by taking away his legs,
yeah.
which meant he wasn't a snake. So yes, I thank you for that. Yes, I agree with that part.
So all through, David Icke has said, and there's a lot of other people as well who actually do believe in with what David Icke has said. He sells out arena tours, and he has wrote numerous books. He has got very, very famous out of this. He can trace this through time and all significant events. And he believes that these lizard people are living among us. And he has, obviously, the Queen and the royal family. And a lot of the world's governments have got this bloodline, so they're the lizard type people. The heads of big businesses as well. Media, singers, actresses, everybody who's important in the world, the United Nations, everything. It's all to do. It's all we're being run by a load of baby-eating lizards.
What's with the baby eating part?
They believe this, right? Okay, not very nice this bit. They believe that if they take a child who's innocent and they subject that child to terrible torture, basically, so this child is absolutely petrified and scared to death, that when they consume this baby or this small child, the essence of this child is better for them, because its evilness that's what they want. Which is a horrible thing to think about, whether it's true or not. But,
whose babies are they eating?
Well, there's lots and lots of different stories about homeless people who have kids, and we've talked about the disappearances. We've done podcasts on that. But if you look at the US alone, the figures are just ridiculous of the amount of men, women, and children that are going missing, and nothing gets done, does it? Nothing is really, especially if you're homeless or you're a minority. You're not going to make as much fuss as if you were middle class and, with your 2.4 children. Yeah, that's what they believe. So bringing it right round, they believe George Bush was one, and his dad was one. There's loads and loads of pictures on YouTube of celebrities they're being filmed, and suddenly their eyes change, and they zoom in, and they've got like lizard's eyes. And I don't know if it's like photoshopped or whatever it is, but it's really, really scary. And there's a couple of pictures of the Queen, and she looks horrible, basically. She creeps me out. Really, really creeps me out. But I think it happened with Beyonce as well.
Oh, yeah.
basically people with influence and people with power are the ones that are basically, we're pretty much just like cattle to them, according to David Icke. So to bring this back round to Lady Diana, one of the reasons, forget about the Muslim baby and all this, that, and the other. Lady Diana was supposedly going to go to the media and spill the beans about this and about the Queen. She'd seen the Queen changed into this lizard, and she'd seen what had been going on, and they wanted her to be part of it. They wanted the Spencers' bloodline to merge with their bloodline, and Lady Diana said no. She said, I'm going to go to the papers, I'm going to go to the media.
But she'd already had 2 children with them, so...
Yeah. And then she died.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why they think that she died, because she was going to come out and tell the truth. I mean, I know it's a lot to believe, but... Excuse me, I was just getting a drink. But what do you think about that? Do you think it's completely crazy?
I think that I don't know about the lizard thing. Although it is interesting that you point out the different parts, but that's biblically. So if you don't believe in the Bible, then you're going to be like, well, what does that have to do with me?
Yeah.
For people who believe in the Bible, they can go point to, yes, this happened with a reptile or some form of that. But if you don't believe in the Bible, then you would be like, that's not history. That's not historical. Show me something historically. And does he have other proof other than biblically? Does he have other examples?
He has got David Icke. To David Icke, I do like listening to some of what David Icke says, but David Icke is one of these people where everything is a conspiracy. Everything is a conspiracy. It's not. He believes that he can communicate with aliens. He believes that there are different dimensions, and he believes that there's no such thing as UFOs. It's people coming from other dimensions who are further along technology-wise, and he is bizarre. That's, he is very, very bizarre, and he believes this 100%, and he believes he has proof. I don't know what that proof is, but he believes he gets visions. That's why he just changed suddenly, and he believed that someone came to him while he was sleeping and told him all this.
Oh.
So it's a difficult one.
Yeah. I'm more inclined to believe people who think one or two things could be a conspiracy rather than everything.
Yeah.
I would honestly, I would hate to be that kind of a person. That would be too big of a burden. Yeah.
You'd lose your mind eventually, because you just lose your mind.
I would lose my mind. It would be such a huge burden to constantly be, well, he lives in fear. That's what he lives in, fear, constantly. And that's got to be tough. So, I don't know. I don't know if people are lizards. I think I'm inclined to say no, they're not lizards. I need some more proof.
Yeah, I think there is. I don't believe the lizard story. I do think something went on as far as Lady Diana is concerned. And I do
unfortunately, I think so too.
And I think that some of the things he says could be may be true, but I think he's gone completely off the edge now. And
Which then kind of negates everything that he might have said that was true. Then you're
yeah,
like, he's just got a mental illness and paranoia, and so we're just gonna ignore everything he says, even if there was bits and pieces of truth spread throughout stuff he says. It makes you just become exhausted.
I mean, his kind of circle of friends, they believe that there's a lady, she's an American lady, and she believes that a 7 foot, she lives in a trailer, by the way, if that means anything. I don't know if that's status or whatever, but she
I lived in a trailer growing up.
Okay.
I'm not crazy. Well, that's probably not a fact. Maybe it did have to do with that.
Listen to this bizarre. She believes that she is in contact with this alien race who look like lizards.
Uh-huh.
She has said that on numerous occasions, this 7 foot lizard comes to her in the night, and he is huge. And I don't know if being huge is the kind, you'll understand in a minute, size-wise and maybe other ways-wise. And he makes love to her, or they have sex, and then he disappears. And she is absolutely adamant that this is true. You need to spend some time in a room with some rubber wallpaper.
Yeah. That's not normal.
That's taking it to the extreme.
Yeah.
But there are people out there that, like David Icke, that, you know, they will swear on a stack of Bibles that this is true. But
right.
I don't know. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. But I thought it might be amusing to tell you the story of David Icke and his letter to people.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Might be a little weird. All right. Are you ready to hear about the moon landing?
Yep, just getting my big file of papers.
I know. I sent Rob photos yesterday because a lot of this evidence is photo based, and if he can't see the photos, he's not going to know what I'm talking about. So, all right, here we go. The moon landing, and I'm going to try to make this not last until tomorrow, okay, guys? So, bear with me. It's got a lot of information. Okay, so what would be the motive for saying we went to the moon when we didn't? Couple of motives. One, in 1961, John F. Kennedy came out and said that by the end of the decade, we were going to go to the moon. And that was John F. Kennedy. You know, he was John F. Kennedy. So we kind of had to go to the moon. He didn't leave any room for error. There were concerns at the time that Russia was going to build a missile base on the moon. So we were in a rush to space with Russia, and we were in the middle of a Cold War. So, you know, back in the day, Russia was our enemy and our biggest competition. So in the 1960s, as they progressed, we were not making the kinds of advancements that the Russians were making. In fact, they got the first person in space. We did not. And they put Yuri Gagarin in space. So, you know, we think of our astronauts as being the first astronauts in space. You know, everybody knows Buzz Aldridge and Aldridge? Is that right? Aldrin? Thank you. I was like, wait, that's not right. You know, and those types of names, but it was Yuri Gagarin. He was the first person in space. Here's a little bit about Yuri. Like I said, he was the first person to enter into outer space. He was in space for 1 hour and 48 minutes. He did a complete orbit of the Earth on April 12th, 1961. He became a celebrity internationally, and of course, in the Soviet Union, he was considered a hero. He died in 1968 when the MiG-15 training jet he was piloting crashed. Now, it is called a MiG-15. Am I correct? I mean, I saw Top Gun. These are called MiGs, right?
MiGs, yeah. Okay.
So, I mean, I saw Top Gun. I have to be some kind of an expert. So, he died in 1968.
That's. I know he spit me G's everywhere then.
Yeah. My G's. So, anyway, like I said, he died in 1968 when his MiG crashed. So you have to remember and put yourself back in this time in history where we were very, very afraid of a nuclear war with the Russians. This is the time in history when I live in Texas, and we have tornado alarms, sirens, and those tornado sirens used to be used as bomb raid sirens, and kids all over the country would hear those sirens and have to get under their desks to protect them from a nuclear war. I mean, they were scaring the bejesus out of everybody. And so also at the same time, we started going into the Vietnam War. And coincidentally, all manned spacecraft coordinates with the timeline of the Vietnam War. We completely stopped having manned spacecraft to the moon around the exact same time that the Vietnam War stopped. So, what I'm going to do right now is go through a little bit of why it's possible that we could have faked the moon landing, and we'll go through some photography. Jeremy will put it on the screen. Now, technology. If you've ever seen the control room at, Houston or the Kennedy Space Center, the technology they had was literally the equivalent of a TI-83 calculator. A TI-83 calculator, that is what we are meant to believe put human beings on the moon and got them back. I can type hello upside down on a calculator. So that's about as much technology. I mean, I can do 2 times 4, mind you, but I can do Bob and hello and I think maybe ass. Those real technical things on a calculator. Now imagine these people were sending people to the moon on this technology that I was using to make up words. First and foremost, the Van Allen belt. The Van Allen belt, I'll tell you what it is. Van Allen belts are belts of radiation, and we were running up against problems about how to get humans through the radiation without frying them into tiny bits. According to Russia, several cosmonauts died in the process of trying to figure this out. The Apollo missions to the moon marked the first ever attempts to transport living human beings through that belt. Conspiracy theorists contend that the sheer levels of radiation would have cooked the astronauts en route to the moon. The Russians never made it to the moon, and I don't think they made it through the I could be wrong. I don't think they made it through the Allen Belt. I think they stayed in underneath the Allen Belt, is what I believe my research shows. Now, they had layers of aluminum coating on the interior and exterior of the ship, which was what they thought would protect them from all this radiation. And if anybody's ever put a baked potato in a microwave, you know that that goes wrong pretty fast. Next, Gus Grissom was supposed to be the first man who ever walked on the moon. That was his position. But a little problem with Gus Grissom was that he was very vocal about the space program and how he didn't think we had the technology to get to the moon. He also was very vocal about how the simulators had severe problems with them, and even simulating going to the moon was causing these simulators to burn up. And he was very concerned about that. So Gus Grissom died, along with Ed White and Roger Chaffee, in the Apollo 1 mission. And it wasn't supposed to be called the Apollo 1 mission. It wasn't supposed to be Apollo yet, but they begged whoever was in charge of them to please let them call this the Apollo 1, and they were allowed to go ahead and put that sticker on their, or patch on their uniforms. They caught fire and burned to death upon a pre-launch system, a test, and that was on Launch Pad 34 in what was called Cape Kennedy at the time. All three
died, haven't they, Tracy?
What?
Well, a lot of them have suddenly died.
Yeah, strangely enough, I remember the Challenger mission. I remember my mom was watching, I don't know, something like Good Morning America or something, and it came on TV, and I was, like everybody else in the world, glued to that. When I lived in Arizona, there was several astronauts that died, and I believe that was upon landing, because they landed out in the middle of nowhere and crashed and died. I think that's comes with the territory. Unfortunately, all three men were asphyxiated, and we're talking about the top scientists that at least this country has, right? That's who works at NASA. You're going to be the best of the best to work at NASA. And they never figured out what the ignition source was for this fire. It's things like that allow people to start doubting what you're saying, when it's common sense that the scientists working for NASA should be able to figure out what started a fire in their vehicle, but no. So the next thing is that conspiracy theorists come up with, and and like I said, I'm going to come at this from conspiracy theorist point of view, and then from whatever debunks conspiracy theorist point of view. So I'm trying to do this just like a robot, but it's not working apparently. Crosshairs on photos. So they use the examples of the photos used from the different moon landings have crosshairs that are etched onto the lens of the camera. Well, a lot of these crosshairs are behind objects or people or the flag or whatever. And the only way that's possible is to have inserted them later and put them where the crosshair was, and then they are over it. It's the only way it's possible. A crosshair cannot disappear behind an object in a photo because it's etched into the lens. It is where it is. It's going to be right in front of you. Yet there are these crosshairs behind these photos, which is something that, I mean, I just don't know. As a skeptic, I'm a skeptic of everything. I'm a skeptic in conspiracy theories. I want to see facts. And this is sort of a fact that I can say, yeah, that's weird. That's unusual. We're going to move on to the sea rock. So a lot of you might have seen these famous pictures. So there's a rock, and it has a sea on it. It's very clear. Conspiracy theorists think that it has a sea on it because it was marked as a prop. And there would be a map that said, prop C goes here, and prop A goes there, and so on and so forth. Well, NASA showed the original photograph of the rock, and there is no quote-unquote original photograph of the rock, and there is no sea. NASA's explanation is that there must have been a hair on the equipment they used to, re-photograph the original photograph, which makes no sense because, middle of the road, Tracy, middle of the road. Every picture would have had a C on it. From then on, every picture would have had a C on it. But there isn't. There's just this rock with a C. So, I don't know. You be the judge. Is that what happened? Was there a C hair on the lens of the editing equipment? Competing shadows. What? Go ahead.
It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. The more and more you get into this podcast, it's just absolutely how NASA. I just can't believe it, honestly. It just gets more bizarre by the minute.
Yeah, it really does. I can really see how there are people, and I think the last thing I saw was that 26% of Americans don't believe we landed on the moon, and that's has been a pretty big jump over the years. And I think that's because we have access to the internet and we can see photographs like this and think, hey, that explanation doesn't seem to make sense. Where are the C's on the photos taken after that? And if they did realize they made a mistake, and that's why there were no C's on the editing stuff after that, then you would take the hair off and re-edit that rock picture, right?
Yeah.
That would seem to be good editing. We are talking about NASA. They're pretty big. They're using the best of the best. Do it again. But we're just, okay, so we get there was a C on the camera, on the editing equipment. Competing shadows. So, Jeremy, you're putting these pictures up as I'm talking about it, right? Okay, so on the moon, there was only one strong light source, which would be, obviously, the sun. So it's fair to suggest that all shadows would run parallel to one another. But this is not the case during the moon landing. Videos and photographs clearly show that shadows fall in different directions. Conspiracy theorists suggest that this means that there must have been multiple light sources present. They suggest that the landing photos were taken on a film set because of that. So we can take a minute to take a look at these shadows and see how they are not running parallel to each other. They are in different directions. And I will do the debunking thing after I'm done with this, and you can see if that makes any sense to you or not. In the debunking issues, it seems like no two debunkers have the same answer, and NASA and the debunkers often conflict with each other. But I will read what the debunking thing is for the shadows.
Tracy,
yes.
You said earlier on when you started off that the top scientists and everybody working for NASA, it's the best of the best. Excuse me, I've got a sore throat.
I'm choking. Hold on a second. She's alive.
Right.
Yes.
Well, especially about these photographs and the crosshairs, some of the explanations that NASA have come up with.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they lost a load of photographs as well, didn't they? They just lost a load.
Well, in one circumstance, they lost everything, and their explanation was that the astronaut holding the camera faced the camera towards the sun, which ruined the camera. So no photos were able to be taken off of that.
It's just the explanations of you would expect them from a child.
Well, yes. Yeah, and as I get in later into the debunking thing, they speak to us humans, anybody who questions, like we are children. Like, you don't question me. Get back into your room. It's I don't know. It really, when it comes to conspiracies and the debunking aspect really, really drives me nuts. In case I don't get the chemtrails, there's I think he's a scientist at one point at the end of the chemtrail, when I'm talking about it, where he explains that, of course, anything's true. Of course, it could be true, but he doesn't walk out into his living room, and if he's misplaced his keys, it's possible that a dinosaur ghost took those keys, but it's not likely. And it's things like that that really make me, my feathers get ruffled. Like, can we ask a question without being spoken down to? Like we're stupid for even asking. I thought we were told in school that there's no stupid question. The only stupid question is the one not asked. But when it comes to these sorts of topics, you're really treated like, how dare you even question this?
Do you know what I think?
What?
Sorry, Tracy.
Go ahead.
When we're kids, all kids tell lies, and we all know people that are liars. With NASA, it's like they've told so many lies. I don't think they know themselves anymore.
Probably not. Yeah.
What actually happened? I would be surprised if they know. Did we or did we not go? Well,
right.
I don't know if they know anymore themselves.
Right. Right. Yeah, I don't know. And I want to explain this right here. Now, my husband is a full-blown addict to anything that has to do with space. You know how sometimes you have in a marriage you have a hall pass for your celebrity? Like if you ever come in contact with this celebrity, you get a hall pass.
Yeah.
And okay, well, before we even got married, his hall pass was that if he ever had the opportunity to take a one-way trip to Mars, he was going to take it. And so he loves this stuff. So he's cringing. He's listening right now. He wanted to make sure that I did the debunking stuff as well, because this is every little boy's dream, to grow up and go to the moon and go into space. And So I'm coming at this from a place where I don't want to bust his dreams up. I'm just telling you guys what people's thoughts are, and we're showing you pictures, and you guys can decide. So, all right, the unexplained object. After photographs of the moon landing were released, theorists were quick to notice a mysterious object in the reflection of an astronaut's helmet. And Jeremy, this is the one where it's up to the right. You know what I'm talking about? Okay. From the Apollo 12 mission. The object appears to be hanging from a rope or a wire and would have no reason at all to be there, or probably no ability to be there, leading some to suggest that it is an overhead spotlight, which would be typically found in the film studio. And I believe the picture that I sent Jeremy to use has what a film studio light looks like next to, and compares to what the reflection is. The resemblance is questionable given the poor quality of the photograph, but the mystery remains as to why something is being suspended in mid-air on the moon. The lunar module in other photos appears to have no extensions from it that matches the photo, so the object still remains completely unexplained. I don't even think that NASA's addressed this particular one. I think that they completely have dismissed this question at all. And I want to tell you that there's some things that I left out of conspiracy theories that I just felt like were kind of real stretches. So you guys might not be hearing every conspiracy theory right now, and you can feel free to go look up the rest of them, although I will say something interesting is happening on not only YouTube, but on Google, and a lot of these conspiracy theories are being scrubbed. So if you go in and search for conspiracy theories, for instance, I went to go search for the moon landing conspiracy theories, and nearly all the articles were debunking theories. Why it's impossible to have faked the moon landing, which is ridiculous. It's not impossible to do much of anything, and they all come from like early, like 2016 to 2018. So, and if you look on YouTube for different conspiracy theories, they're being scrubbed too. So if you want to get on it, start looking right now, because we might not have them long. Lack of artifacts. Okay. So the easiest way to prove that these moon landings happened is we left a bunch of crap up there. And so NASA has been asked to get a telescope, take a picture of where we landed on the moon, and show it to us, like live and in person. You know, and while it's not their job to debunk conspiracy theories, they do respond to some things and say, you know, well, this is what happened. Like for instance, the sea. So people say, okay, take one of your massive telescopes, point it to where we landed, show us the junk we left up there. And NASA's response is this. They say that it does not have a telescope that is big enough to zoom in to the moon where we landed and show us the junk. Their explanation says that the junk would have to be about the size of a small house to be seen from our largest telescope.
That's crazy.
Does that make sense? Does that make sense to anybody? That we don't have a telescope? We can see other galaxies, but we don't have a telescope that can zoom in on the moon. Okay.
What about the telescope that's up in space? Not the Hummel?
Hubble?
Yeah. Why can't I just turn around, or just for a minute, and just take a photograph of the moon. It's photographing galaxies millions and millions and millions of light years away. Why can't I just turn around and photograph the moon and send it to Wi-Fi it back down to Earth?
Because they don't want to?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know another reason. Although I'm not a scientist, so I don't know what it would take to do that. But, I mean, it's just really frustrating. Okay, so one conspiracy theory involves the fact that there are no stars in the pictures with the astronauts. The conspiracy theory is that we had a very short timeline to get into space. And when the Russians were putting a man into space and we weren't, it was crunch time. So we had very little technology. We couldn't figure out how to get through the Allen Belt. And we certainly didn't have time for somebody to sit down and mark the entire galaxy of stars the exact way it would be on that exact day in that amount of time. So there's just no stars. That's the conspiracy theory. The argument here will come up later. I'm going to tell you what NASA and some other people say about why there is no stars. And you guys can decide if that is, reliable or not. The thing is that you can take pictures of stars with your own iPhone right now. But, they couldn't get pictures of stars on the moon. We're going to move on to the duplicate backdrop. Okay, so there's two photos from the Apollo 15 mission, and they have identical backdrops. Do you have this picture up, Jeremy? Okay, here's the problem. Those pictures are officially listed by NASA as having been taken miles apart from each other. Not even in the same place. One photo even shows the lunar module in the picture. When the photographs were taken, the lunar module had already landed. So how is it possible that it's there for one photo and then disappears in another photo? Well, if you're a conspiracy theorist, it seems viable that maybe NASA simply used the same backdrop when filming different scenes for their moon landing videos. NASA has suggested that since the moon is much smaller than Earth, horizons can appear significantly closer to the human eye than they really are. And despite this, to say that the two hills visible in the photographs are miles apart it's just not true. They're the exact same. Nothing is different. You can't say that this exact hill formation also occurs several miles away in the exact same manner. You can't go anywhere on Earth and show that, let alone a barren rock. Let's see. So we've seen the astronauts do their slow motion bouncing around because, the lack of gravity. A lot of people have played with the speed of those videos. And Jeremy, I didn't give you a picture for this. But if you guys want to, you can go look up the videos. And conspiracy theorists say that what they really had them do was be in a movie studio kind of a thing, and jump from foot to foot to foot to foot, go in a rover and drive around and then they slowed it down so that it looks like you're bouncing up and down. But if you slow it down by half, then it does look like it's bouncing around. But if you slow it up to twice the speed, it looks like completely normal walking and bouncing from foot to foot to foot. Now, I'm not saying that that is a good example of why it could be a conspiracy theory, because as somebody who edits, I oftentimes take music and slow it down to use it for my videos, and it doesn't mean that the original wasn't fast. And this is vice versa. So I'm just saying that that is something that conspiracy theorists do point to. The flag was waving. When the first moon landing was shown on live television, viewers could clearly see that the American flag was waving and fluttering as Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin planted it. Photos of the landing also seem to show it rippling in a breeze. The obvious problem here is that there is no air in the moon's atmosphere, and therefore no wind could cause the flag to blow. Countless of explanations have been put forward to disprove this phenomenon as anything unusual. NASA claimed the flag. Okay, here you go. NASA's claim about this. NASA's explanation for why this flag is rippling is that this flag was stored in a thin tube, all rippled up. And so when they took it out, the ripple effect was caused because it was being unfurled and then planted. Other explanations involve the ripples caused by the reaction of force of the astronauts touching the aluminum pole, which is shown to shake in the footage. First off, I just don't believe that they wrinkled up an American flag and sent it up into space. We take very good care of our flags here. And NASA would not just shove some flag in a tube and be like, here you go. So, take a look at that picture, see what you think. The next thing is the lack of crater impact. If you look under the lunar module, there is no sign that they landed. It's just not disturbed underneath the lunar module.
Not a drop of dust either, not a bit of dust or anything.
Nothing. There's nothing. So the claim goes as follows. Had NASA really landed on the moon, there would be a blast crater underneath the lunar module to mark its landing. But on any footage or photograph of the landings, no crater is ever visible. Almost as though the module was simply placed there. The surface of the moon is covered in fine lunar dust, and even this doesn't seem to have been displaced in any photographic evidence. So I'm going to have a debunking theory about that coming up pretty soon too. Who took the picture of Neil Armstrong, first man to ever walk on the moon, getting out of the lunar module? Well, NASA's explanation is that there is a cord, there's a camera that is placed on the outside of the module, and it's faced towards where they would be getting out, and Neil Armstrong pulled a cord, and that started the camera, and that took the picture of him coming out of the lunar module. So, I don't know. There you go. They're in one of on YouTube. There's a skeptic, and his name is StreetCap1, and he claimed to have new evidence debunking NASA's moon landing. He uploaded a video which 1.6 million viewers have seen now. Oh, more than that now. In November 16, 2017, asking where is the reflection of the camera taking the photo. And Jeremy, do you have that picture where there's a man standing in front of the an astronaut's face helmet, and you can see him standing there, but he's taking a picture, but there's no camera? Okay, so you can see the man in the reflection of the helmet. He's standing there, and taking a picture, quote unquote, but there is no camera. And I've heard people talk about how their gloves were so massive that you couldn't use a camera. There was no way to like push buttons on a camera. So, what is he taking the picture of? Or could he be a stagehand? Dun, 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 dun. There has been a lot of people who have recreated the exact pictures of the moon landing. Exactly. And if you would like to, you can go to BuzzFeed on YouTube, or even just Google it. BuzzFeed. I'm naming BuzzFeed in particular because of how famous they are. They recreated photos, and they look exactly the same as the moon landing photos. And yes.
Let's interrupt you again.
That's okay.
I don't think you haven't mentioned it yet, and I don't know if you are planning on mentioning it. Okay. If you are, I'm sorry. You've not mentioned the Stanley Kubrick film. Is it the one about?
Yeah. Well, okay. So I'll tell that. So yeah, 2001: Space Odyssey came out.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And the theory is that NASA thought that it was so correct on what it would look like if you were out in space that they went to Stanley Kubrick and asked if he would film the moon landing. So there's a whole conspiracy about, and here's the reason I didn't talk about this. His daughter is on the other side of furious about this theory. I mean, she's like mad furious about this theory. And it's very upsetting to her that people think that her father, who was anti-establishment, he was very distrustful. He had a very creative mind, and would never be told or bought off by anyone, would agree to pull a hoax over the American people. The problem is that this particular hoax, if it is a hoax, this hoax did a lot of good. We quote unquote won the Cold War against Russia. Russia stopped trying to get to the moon because they didn't want to be second. For second, we're not going to do it anymore. It put a hold on that. It brought the nation together and a whole lot of nationalism. Go America, go. So even just for that, and to get through the whole Vietnam War, and to have a distraction from the Vietnam War, which we can do a whole conspiracy theory on the Vietnam War, which actually isn't a conspiracy theory because the facts have come out that the start of the Vietnam War was actually a faked incident that started the Vietnam War and got us into that war. It was the what's it, Jeremy? No, it wasn't. It was something about the. It's a body of water. There was something in a body of water that happened. I can't think of what the word for that water is. But the point of the story is, they said that that there was an attack and we needed to go over there, and it was all fabricated. It was the tail wagging the dog situation. So the theory is that Kubrick filmed this film to help win the war, the Cold War against Russia, to calm that down, because we can't imagine, well, we're starting to be able to, but we can't imagine the amount of stress that those people had. I mean, people were putting bunkers in their backyards. Lots of people had bunkers in their backyards. We currently use them as tornado shelters now. It was a very scary time in America. And maybe it is possible that Kubrick could see that the good did outweigh the bad, and put aside his moral beliefs for the good, because this did calm things down, everything down, really deflated the entire situation. So maybe, Jeremy, while I'm talking, or could you have Maya look up what was the beginning? What was it, the incident that started the Vietnam War? Because it's good. The Gulf of Tonkin. Thank you. So maybe he did decide that for the good of America, he could film this and not feel like he was being a traitor to America. Maybe he could feel like he was being a patriot, because it really just the first moon landing alone helped people get out of there, helped people celebrate something, and they hadn't been able to do that in a long time. Yes, you can.
Okay, so my idea is, if Kubrick did it, as creative as a
Jeremy, can we tell people who you are?
Yes, this is Jeremy, the producer. Jeremy, what?
That's right. Okay.
My idea is, if Kubrick actually filmed the moon landing, or directed it, or whatever, I think maybe we can't discount that, the NASA's a segmented branch of the government, and they could twist his arm in any way that they could imagine. We've known that they've done it before, and I think the little discrepancies and the little anomalies that we find in the films and in the pictures, like with the sea on the rock and everything, could be Kubrick's way of hiding those Easter eggs for the people who actually know.
Yeah, I've heard that before. You spot on.
What's interesting about that is that people say that he hid. Can you hear me? Okay, sorry, because I turned my mic off. The interesting thing about that is that people believe that he hid clues in The Shining about the space landing. The little boy was wearing the Apollo 11 patch on his shirt and things like that.
Yeah.
So the C on the rock, which his name is K, right? Spelled with a K. But still, that could have been like a little, here's a little hint kind of a thing. But yeah, I mean, it as far as conspiracy theories go, that is a big one. Don't let his daughter get a hold of you, though, because that makes her pretty mad. And it seems weird that it makes her so mad, because, I mean, it's almost, it's almost when somebody gets more angry than the situation calls for that they look guilty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's very, very mad. So, that was a good point, Jeremy. Let's see. Oh, okay. So then there's a couple of other things that are just little additions. If the craters on the moon are from meteors, like we've been told our whole lives, and we see just the same side of the moon always, where did the meteors come from? Because they would have had to go through Earth. So people are like, how did this happen? How is that possible? I do not know this. I'm not an expert on meteors. I cannot tell you. And like somebody said to me, and I think it was moderator Maya, why aren't we still seeing meteors hit it? Yeah, I don't know.
Thought of that.
I know, I hadn't either, so I thought, I'm going to throw that in. Let's see. Oh, also there's a conspiracy theory that says that because Apollo 1 burst into flames, that it's possible that they didn't have time or the equipment to pull everything together to win this race to the moon. So that they faked it to sort of buy time, and that it's possible that maybe Apollo 14 and 15 were the actual real missions to space. Some people believe that we didn't go into space then, but it's possible that we did later, and we just bought ourselves a little bit of time. So, I don't know. Think about that. Let that sink in and see what you think about that. We're going to go down through some debunking. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Here we go. I wrote this out, so I'm going to read it the way I wrote it. It's very hard to read the articles that debunk conspiracy theories because they are always condescending, they engage in name-calling, and are all around outright showing rage towards people who question the status quo. It's almost a how dare they ask a question. And huh?
We're used to you now. We'll be all right.
Yeah. So, like I said, the picture of Neil Armstrong, the answer to that was that there was a cord that was attached to the side of the lander, and it was deployed by Neil Armstrong, who managed to take that camera took a picture of him walking out. Some people believe that the earlier landings were faked, but that NASA finally managed to get there sometime in the 1970s. And we had made a promise, JFK had made a promise that we were going to get there by the end of the 60s. So that was also a lot of pressure being put on them, because his official deadline was before the decade is out. So it's possible that maybe after the Apollo one caught on fire and we realized that we didn't have the technology, and Gus Grissom was coming out saying even the simulators didn't have the technology, that it's possible that we filmed it, like I said, to buy the time and go maybe in the 70s. Here's the answer for the no stars. And I'm gonna there's a couple answers for no stars. And I believe, hold on a second. I think there's a couple answers for no stars. Okay, yes, there are. So I'm going to cut this one short because this guy is just blah, 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 blah. I'm sorry. Anyway, it goes, proponents, and this is an example of how people talk to you if you question. Proponents of the hoax theory insist that there are no stars visible in any of the footage or photographs taken on the moon. This is very true. Take any image at night, and you'll very rarely see stars in the sky. This is because stars are faint things, which is the very reason you can't see them during the day. It takes the human eye a good few minutes to an hour to adjust seeing the stars in the sky, even on a clear night. I don't feel like that's true.
That's not true.
I know. I'm like, an hour? I don't walk outside ever and go. It's just black. Anyway, because the rhodopsin in our retinal photoreceptors needs time to unbleach the widening of our irises, blah, 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 blah. Cameras have the same issue. They expose their shots for a certain length of time and with a certain iris size. During the day when it's nice and bright, exposure can be short. Consider that on a clear night with a full moon, it reflects enough light for a person on Earth to see their shadow and to be able to read. Imagine how bright it is on the sun's surface. Yeah, it's pretty bright on the sun's surface. On the moon's surface. This isn't just a hand wave to explain the moon landings. The exposure problem for observing stars exists on Earth and is easily demonstrable. Just try and take a picture of the stars, or the planets for that matter, with a cell phone. And by the way, I cut out this guy's talking down to us, so I'll have to use another one of his examples. But in actuality, I have taken pictures with my cell phone of stars and the skies. and the moon. And it works. So I don't know. But his explanation basically is really, well, the camera was unable to do it. Okay, so that's this guy's explanation. Okay, so the C rock. The image purports to show the letter C on a rock, but it's rather obviously a fiber on somebody's scanner glass. Conspiracy theorists say that this is a label for a prop piece and that the letter indicates which position it goes in for the shot. There are numerous problems with this, not the least of which is the fact that the letter is clearly a case of pareidolia?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Secondly, this is not even seen anywhere else in any of the moon footage or photos. If NASA was dumb enough to put a prop the wrong way up, you'd expect it to be visible on most of the rocks, or the moon buggy, or the lander itself. Third, and most importantly, no one in film or television labels their set pieces like this precisely because such labels might be seen if the director picks a new angle to shoot from. Okay, first off, making one mistake isn't proof that therefore every prop would be a mistake. That's just a ridiculous argument. Well, if it happened on the rock, then why isn't it on every rock? Because it was a mistake. That's the meaning of the word mistake. I'm just saying this particular guy really grates on me. Let's see. The videos of the Apollo 17 lunar module taking off. Okay, so this is something I hadn't talked about. People wonder, how did we get pictures of Apollo 17 taking off from the moon? And this says that technically only the ascent stage takes off. And it often puzzles people because the camera tilts up to follow it in flight, implying that someone was there operating the camera. This is my favorite part. Much to the delight of the conspiracy nuts. In reality, the lunar rover had a television camera, and the ground command television crew, they moved it as the module was taking off. So, okay, that could make sense to me, I guess. That they would leave a camera down there to watch him take off. I don't know. It seems like they'd have a lot more stuff to do than worry about production value, but whatever.
Tracy?
Yeah.
Also, that camera thing when they took off, if that was what the guy was saying, it follows the it follows up the lunar module perfectly in frame, perfectly all the way.
Yeah.
It's like, oh.
Yeah, but this guy is saying that, that's somebody's job in NASA, one of these scientists. Their job was to make this camera smoothly follow it as it was leaving. So, yeah. Okay, shadows. In some shots, astronauts' shadows appear to be cast in different directions. Conspiracy buffs with little to zero understanding about how light works. That makes me want to punch this guy.
I'll show him out.
We're just like dope to dough. How does the light work?
Show him all lights work.
Yeah, knock his lights out. It says they claim that this is proof of two light sources. If they were really on the moon, there would only be one light source, the sun. However, anyone with even a vague knowledge of reality, see, this is what makes me mad. Why do you have to come at people like that? It's more believable if you say, well, here's how the science of this would work, right? If you would say, here's how the science of this would work. The sun would be here, and you draw a demonstration and say, because of the closeness to the sun and the way this rock is tilted and the way this person is standing, it could have shadows that were competing, but instead, he says, even a vague knowledge of reality knows that multiple light sources create multiple shadows for each object. Well, that's what we're saying, actually. And yet do not create one shadow that points in a different direction. The different orientations of the shadows are due to, all right, this is really, to uneven ground and illusions. Wait, your fact is, because I don't have a vague knowledge of reality, your fact is that it's illusions? I don't have a vague notion of reality, but you're explaining it, saying it's an illusion.
It's like saying it's a magic trick.
Yes. Well, if you had a vague notion of magic tricks, Rob, you would know that this is actually a rabbit in a hat.
I don't know.
That's what I do. I go, I don't know. Okay, so for various purposes, photographs from the moon feature black crosshairs, technically named fiducials, at regular intervals. In some images, the crosshairs appear behind parts of the image. This suggests to the mind of the conspiracy hacks that the images have been tampered with, much in the style of Photoshop disasters. However, careful examination of this shows that only very bright white areas seem to cover the crosshairs. Jeremy, on those pictures, is that true? Or are there things that aren't very white? Yeah, but are they next to something that are very white? Okay. Thank you. So let's see. Where am I doing this? This is a very well-known optical and image processing phenomenon where the bright white areas bleed across the exposure, covering the crosshairs as the image was captured. In fact, higher quality scans of the same photos, which involved better processing techniques, showed the crosshairs intact. And I have seen those, and the one that they show as an example is there's like a white, I need my, there's a white, like, small thing on the ground. It looks like, okay, here I am. It looks like, I don't even know what it is. It looks like it's like 2 feet tall and has something coming, like a pipe coming out of it, and the pipe turns left. Do you see what I'm talking about, Jeremy? Okay, in that picture, when they do a better quality image, that picture shows that there is a black mark across that white image, and that the crosshair does go, it is even with the black mark across the image. It's even with it. So that's the only one they show as a real example of how that could happen. So the flag. The U.S. flag planted during the moon landings visibly shakes while being handled. This is claimed to be evidence of wind and therefore proof that it was filmed on Earth on a soundstage, rather than in a vacuum of space. In fact, very counterintuitively, the vacuum of space is exactly why you see it wave the way it does. When surrounded by air, the flag would be subject to air resistance, and so while it would flap if in a strong wind, it would also settle down very quickly as the air buffers against its motion, which is not what NASA says. NASA says that it's doing that because of the way it was stored. So, we don't know. The Van Allen belt. Common argument against the landings in the areas of radiation surrounding the Earth originated from solar wind trapped by the Earth's magnet field. Many people claim that it is impossible to pass through these areas alive, and hence there is no way anyone could have reached the moon. Okay, this guy says, one flaw in this reasoning is a sort of radiation found in the Van Allen belts. They are compromised that the radiation is comprised solely of charged particles originating from the sun's corona, primarily protons, electrons, and alpha particles. These are trivially easy to shield against. Alpha particles can be stopped by a sheet of paper, and electrons by a few millimeters of aluminum. Gamma radiation is not easy to stop, but is noticeably absent from the Van Allen belt. Additionally, despite the energy of the particles, there are very, very few particles in the Van Allen belt. So, I guess if you could have had a paper lunar module, and it would have made it through it. What do you think about that, Jeremy? Okay, so then I went and looked at a different place for debunking things because I was like, this guy's really making me mad. So this says that there's no wind on the moon. The flag is held up by a horizontal bar and simply moves when it is unfurled as the pole is being fixed into position by the astronauts. The flagpole is light and flexible aluminum and continues to vibrate after the astronauts let go, giving the impression of blowing in the wind. So that could be an explanation. Again, that is not the explanation that NASA gives. As far as there are no stars being visible in the pictures taken by the Apollo astronauts from the surface of the moon, the Apollo landing takes place during lunar mornings, with the sun shining brightly. The stars are not bright enough in this light to be captured in the photographs. So take a look at those pictures and see if decide for yourself. No blast. I'm middle of the road right now, Rob. I'm doing pretty good with middle of the road. No blast crater is visible in the pictures taken of the lunar landing modules because the landing module touches down on solid rock. Well, if you're looking at the pictures, you can see that there's dust under it. But it is covered with a layer of fine lunar dust. So there is no reason why it would even create a blast crater. Even if the ground were less solid, the amount of thrust being produced by the engines at that point of landing and takeoff is so low in comparison to a landing on Earth because of the relative lack of gravitational pull. So they basically just whispered off of the moon, and it didn't move anything. So the landing module weighs 17 tons and yet sits on top of the sand, making no impression. Next to it, the astronauts' footprints can be seen in the sand. The layer of lunar dust is fairly thin, so the landing module sits on the solid rock. The dust, while blowing away from the blast from the descent engines, which I thought it wouldn't do, quickly settles back on the ground and underneath the astronauts when they begin their moonwalk. The footprints in the fine lunar dust, with no moisture or atmosphere or strong gravity, are unexpectedly well preserved, as if made in wet sand. The lack of wind on the moon means that the footprints in fine, dry lunar dust are never blown away in the way they would be if they were in a similar substance on Earth. But they said that the wind from the astronauts moved the flag. So wouldn't the winds from the astronauts moving also have a bearing on the dust around the footprints?
I would have thought so.
I would think so. The astronauts could not have survived the trip because of exposure to radiation from the Van Allen belt. This claim is largely based on claims from Russian cosmonauts, the dead ones, I'm imagining, The short time it takes to pass through the belt, combined with the protection from the spacecraft, means that any exposure to radiation would be very low. Okay, so what is it? It has radiation, or it hardly has any at all. There's every debunking, you can go out there and find a whole bunch. I can't even read the amount of debunking things that they have out there, and none of them match. The
Tracy,
rocks, yes.
Tracy, you just said something there. That the flag and the footprints, and because of the wind that the astronauts were making.
Right.
But they wouldn't be making any wind because there's no atmosphere.
I think they just mean like their body moving would create a force, I guess, right?
Well, like if you flap your hand in front of your face, it fans your face, doesn't it?
Yes.
Because we have an atmosphere. But on the moon, there's no atmosphere. So
what happens when you fan your face in the moon? There's nothing?
Well, I wouldn't have thought so, because there's nothing there. Anyway, it's a vacuum, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. Some scientist is going to have to get on here and tell us, and even then, their explanation is not going to match the 100 other explanations. So, okay. The rocks brought back from the moon are identical to rocks collected by scientific expeditions to Antarctica. At some point in time, we had an expedition to Antarctica to collect what they like meteor rocks. Okay. And we gathered these for, I don't know, maybe they're doing some scientific studies on them or something. So some rocks have been found on Earth. Okay, so my husband, who is what I consider an expert, says yes, nothing happens if there's no atmosphere. So if you wave your hand in front of your face, there is nothing to make waves. So, them walking by the flag would not cause atmosphere to move because there is none, and there you go. So, yeah, the flag would not be rippling or anything. Thank you, JD. Appreciate that. So anyway, so we have all these rocks that from Antarctica that were claimed to be like meteoric kind of rocks. And the moon rocks look identical to these rocks, the rocks that they said they brought back from the moon. So some moon rocks have been found on Earth. How are they called moon rocks? Did they come down here after they were hit with an asteroid?
They must have done.
They must have. So some moon rocks have been found here on Earth. However, the experts say the difference between the moon rocks on Earth and the moon rocks from the moon is that the moon rocks on Earth are scorched and oxidized from their entry into the atmosphere as asteroids. Geologists have confirmed with complete certainty that the Apollo rocks have been brought from the moon by man. Well, I got to read you something, okay? I'm going to read you a little something about that. So, as a promotional thing for us having gone to space and walked on the moon, our astronauts went around and gave out moon rocks to, I want to be sure of the amount of countries, 100 countries. Okay. And they wanted to do it as like a, well, sort of like a Go America Go kind of a thing, I think. So they gave Holland a moon rock. Who gave Holland this moon rock? Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. Keep this in mind, please, people. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin gave this moon rock to the curators of Amsterdam's something something museum. I can't. I'm not even going to try and say what it's like. Rick's I don't know. Rijks Museum. Now, this rock has attracted tens and thousands of visitors each year because people want to go see, the moon rock. By the way, this was called a goodwill tour. So, I guess they were going to share the wealth. Here's a moon rock, here's a moon rock, here's a moon rock. And it was good publicity for NASA and for the U.S. And, well, as soon as the people at the museum saw the rock, they knew something was wrong. That it didn't appear to be a rock. So you're giving it to these scientists at this museum, and they're like, I don't know about that. Well, they decided to go ahead and do some testing on this rock, and they found out that this moon rock, valued at 308,000 pounds, is in fact a piece of petrified wood. Yeah, going back, this was given by Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. They said that they were going to keep the stone, the piece of wood, because it's a good story that they can laugh about. Here's what happened. The rock was given to Willem Dries, a former Dutch leader, during a global tour by Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, Buzz Aldrin, following their moon mission. The former American ambassador to the Netherlands made the representation to Mr. Dries, and the rock was donated to the museum. There's a quote that says, I do remember that Dries was very interested in that little piece of stone and thinking that that's not real. And so NASA gave these stones to 100 countries between the years of 1969 and 1970. The United States Embassy in The Hague is now carrying out an investigation into what happened. Researchers at Amsterdam's Free University were able to tell at a glance that the rock was very unlikely to have come from the moon. And then if they tested it and found out that it was petrified wood. So I wonder how many other countries are going to go ahead and test theirs. And finally, there's a conspiracy theory that because all 6 moon landings happened during the Nixon administration and no other president before or after has claimed to have landed astronauts on the moon, despite the 40 years of extraordinarily rapid technological advancement. We've never gone back to the moon. And so the conspiracy theorists believe that it's because it was Richard Nixon. He, wanted to get this done on time. He wanted to hurry up. He didn't want the Russians to get there first. And Richard Nixon, as I think we all know by now, is not a crook. He's not a crook, except for he is. He was a full-blown liar. a narcissistic liar. And their explanation for this is, the fact is that after the Apollo landings, the race had been won and the money dried up. The USSR, which they're not called that anymore, they're Russia, has no interest in coming in second. And politicians on both sides realized that lower orbit missions had a much greater commercial and military potential. The end. Finally, that was an hour.
Have you seen the interviews after they got back from allegedly being on the moon with Buzz Aldrin and whatever the other names were?
I've seen a couple. Go ahead.
You would think that they would be so excited and so, demonstrative and look at what we've done. And I've seen them sat there, and I think they look like they're crying.
Really?
I don't think they wanted, because if it was a lie and it was, and they didn't go to the moon, then obviously they're coming home as national heroes, aren't they? But they're not national heroes, really.
Right.
They found it really difficult to basically sit in front of television cameras and lie.
Well, that's too bad. If anybody's interested, there is a page. Let me see if I can. It is on ozy.com. And it is an interview with a man who was 81 years old. 81-year-old former Hollywood cameraman Max Canard comes clean about his role in what could be the greatest hoax ever carried out, the Apollo moon landing. And this article came out in 2016. I don't know if it's true or not. I mean, you can go look at it, but the date of it coming out is April 1st. So I didn't include it in my podcast because I didn't know if it was an April Fool's joke. And I didn't want to look like an idiot. But you guys can go look at it and see what you think. So that's the moon landing. And I think it's very possible that they had the best intentions. I think that Nixon, especially, being the narcissist that he is, was not going to let Russia win. And maybe did buy some time by saying we went there and, quote unquote, filming it, and people caught their mistakes. I think it's possible. Like Maya believes that it's possible that they did go, but not till later. And by then, well, first off, people started becoming very, very disinterested in going to the moon. They stopped watching it on TV very much. And I think it would have been hard to be like, and now is the real moon landing. You couldn't have done that. You know what I mean? So it just faded away. And I mean, it's possible that they went, but not then. Or that we haven't gone at all. Or that we did go. And we brought back petrified wood. Somehow. That's up to you guys. You guys let me know. What do you think?
I think the whole subject of the moon, even the moon itself, there's lots of conspiracy theories about the moon and how the moon came to be and things like that. I don't think they went. I don't know enough information about if they went later on, but I don't think they went to the moon. And maybe now, with the technology that we have got now and the technology we don't know about, we could get to the moon we may be able to get to the moon quite easily, but you know, the whole, you just said yourself, it's like an hour or maybe longer than an hour. And it's just, you must have found that yourself, Tracy, with the research. It's never ending.
It's never ending. I had to cut it off eventually.
Yeah.
Because you could really get lost.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that I really came away from, I think that, you know, one way to really push my husband's buttons is to casually mention in the course of a regular conversation, like, hey, how was your day at work today? The moon landings were faked. Oh, did that one guy show up? And that is a way to make my husband be like, I'm not talking to you right now. And it's a little enjoyable, I have to say. But I really hadn't dug into investigating it. I had seen videos and articles about it and thought, yeah, that's weird and that's odd and that's strange. And maybe even sort of leaned towards, yeah, maybe we didn't. But until I started doing this investigation, I hadn't really seen what there was, and I hadn't seen what the quote-unquote debunking proof is, which is basically to berate you until you give up. And there's so many debunking theories that it's almost its own conspiracy.
But people are debunking. They're debunking.
Well, it's really interesting because they are debunking what NASA says, so they're not even believing NASA's version. So is it that far of a leap to believe that NASA faked it? If you're not even believing NASA's official version of what happened and you're debunking it in some other way, you're not believing it either. So that puts conspiracy theorists with conspiracy theorists just on the opposite ends of a conspiracy. You know what I mean? It's so weird.
Crazy.
Can't we all just get along? I don't know. I did come away thinking that it's quite possible that with the pressure of the Cold War and the Vietnam War and the death of Kennedy and all the protests and how that time was very stressful. You know, we had hidden missile bunkers everywhere. To this day, we still have hidden missile bunkers everywhere. And I think that it did calm down the situation. And maybe that was what happened. We just, I don't know, maybe it could have made Russia mad and be like, oh, yeah? Well, I'll show you. But I don't know. I think there was a lot of pressure, and maybe a lot of people thought it was, maybe even the astronauts felt like it was their patriotic duty to do this. And I mean, they've been heroes their whole lives, and you know, until they died. And a lot of them are still alive, but maybe in a way they still are heroes because it did manage to stop the Cold War and, you know, all that stuff. So maybe they can still feel like they did do something for their country, and, you know, and they did. So I don't want to take away anything. I mean, astronauts go through a lot and had a lot of training and are very specialized niche. And I wouldn't want to take anything away from them either. And they put their lives at risk, even like sitting, you know, the 3 astronauts who died just sitting there on a pre-launch and it caught on fire, or the Challenger explosion. You know, they do put their lives on the line in the name of this country, and I wouldn't want to take anything away from that. I just think that maybe we did not go to the moon. I probably not then.
I agree.
Yes, you can, Jeremy.
Okay, so I think the interesting thing with the topic in general is we can sit for hours and hours debating whether we went or not. I think the question is just as important as the answer. So we have to make sure we're asking the right question in the first place. And I think a lot of energy is spent on asking the question, did we go, yes or no? And I think there's another question that resides in more of a relevant fashion, and that is, if we did go, what did we find there? And why haven't we gone back since? And
sorry.
And I think that question is more relevant because, I mean, like you said, with the technological advances, you would think we would be able to have a lot more tools and toys to go up there and test out different things and find out a lot more about our only satellite. Well, we haven't, and I think, we spend a lot of time asking one question but not the other, and if we can't get past did we go or not, we'll never know the answer to that question.
I agree, and that also, my space buff of a husband, he that's his major issue, is we've never seen the dark side of the moon. And why, with technology, why did we suddenly stop? Did we see something that we don't want to talk about if we went? That's always been his question about the moon landing. He never doubted we went. What he doubted was what scared us so badly that we didn't go back. And several astronauts claimed to have seen UFOs on their missions, which lends to what were they seeing? What did they see? And why haven't we gone? He wants to know, why don't we explore the opposite side of the moon? Why don't we explore that? We have the technology. Why don't we? Why did everything stop? We're like, forget the moon, on to Mars. But we didn't really finish discovering what the moon has to offer. And like you said, it's our only satellite. And I think that you and JD are very similar in that, wondering that question. If we did go, what happened? Why did we stop?
Well, there's a chain of thought, and it's another conspiracy, that we did go to the moon, and there were basically spaceships, flying saucers, or whatever you want to call them, observing us.
Right.
And we were basically warned off. That's why we haven't been back.
Well, several astronauts reported that they saw something in the, I don't know what the technical word for it, so I'm going to say sky, around them. And they also saw, there are also pictures, if you can look online, of things that very much look like they are man-made, what's the word I'm looking, man-made objects. Like there's a pyramid, a picture that looks like a pyramid, and a couple of other things that we have seen pictures of, and people wonder, did something like that happen? Did we get there and go, oh shit, we're seeing something watching us, we're reporting UFOs? And in one case, the whole report of the UFO was like, the people heard it, but then they erased it and said it was lost or something. So yeah, if we did go, why, what happened? And like I said, a theory is that we stopped going because the Vietnam War was over and we didn't need the distraction anymore. And, that was Nixon's, his own ego and all that shit. But who knows? I don't know. I don't know. That's why I think it's possible that we maybe did go later, too. And I don't know. I don't know, but there are reports that they saw things. I did, in my research, come across those type of things, but I just didn't want to do a cross moon landing UFO alien thing at the same time. We can do that another time. I can do that. And, maybe they were lizards.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where Princess Diana's living right now with Elvis. It's possible. I'm going to start my own conspiracy right now. So, Let's see, 2.5 hours. I don't think I'm going to get my chemtrails in today. Let's talk about crop circles.
You sure?
I'm positive.
Okay. Well, in the 1980s, crop circles started appearing around the UK, mainly in sort of wheat fields and things like that. People started saying it was to do with extraterrestrials and aliens, but two guys came out and they said that they were doing them with basically a piece of wood with two ropes tied together, and they were going around and doing them. They did show how they did it, but in my opinion, and a lot of other people's opinion, it was nothing like the proper crop circles. There have been legends saying that years and years and years ago, or hundreds of years, or hundreds and hundreds of years ago, there was a thing called a mowing devil, and there are pictures and paintings of this, like a little devil creature, running around the fields basically, and making the crop circles. So there is some history behind this, even though it is quite a new phenomenon. When the two guys were basically, they came out and said that they were doing it, people seemed to lose interest for a while, but then they started to appear more often in the UK, and then they started appearing in the US and in Australia, pretty much all over. And people started to wake up a little bit and started to think, well, maybe we need to start studying these a little bit more. And I'm not in any way, shape or form any kind of mathematician, but a lot of these crop circles, there is a lot of maths and a lot of science that goes into actually making them. Mm-hmm. They are perfect, basically. Some of the designs are absolutely stunning. Now, I believe there are some crop circles that are made by people, but I believe that there are other crop circles that are unexplained. I'm not going to say they're made by aliens. I just think they're unexplained. There have been some studies done where there have been small, say, glowing orbs of light going around the fields at night, and then a crop circle appearing. There was a case where a lady and gentleman were flying over a certain part of the UK, and they flew over this area, and there was absolutely nothing. They banked the plane back around and came over again. And there was this huge crop circle. It was just out of nowhere. In America, they have really been studying this, some colleges and universities in America. And what they have found, when you use a board and when you use a piece of string, it breaks the wheat. It actually breaks the stalks of wheat. And some of the crop circles that are unexplained, the wheat isn't bent, it isn't broke. The actual stem of the wheat has been blown out, like it's been basically put in a microwave, and you can actually see it. And it's they can't explain how it's happened. They've tried to make equipment to try and make the crop circles, but it's really difficult to do it. And there is a lot of radiation as well that has been found in the crop circles that are not man-made. Excuse me for a second while I get a drink. what they've basically done, they have found that when you go into a crop circle, there is a strange feeling. There is a strange sort of aura that makes people quite they can't get the balance properly, and almost like being on a ship. They really, really feel that they just can't explain this feeling that they've got. And something else that's really, really strange, and this is something that really fascinates me, the crop circles that have been man-made, once that corn is cut down, there's nothing. There's no area. You wouldn't know where the crop circle had been. They plant new crops and the crops grow, and unless another crop circle appears, no problem. In some of these bigger designs, and some of these, in my personal opinion, could not have been done by human beings. Once the corn has been cut down and the field has been completely emptied of all the corn, it leaves like an X-ray on the actual floor, on the soil, and when the fields are replanted with corn, with wheat, it won't grow in these places. It won't grow there at all. Now, I don't know what you think about that, but I think it's really, really interesting, and I would really, really love to actually go and walk in a crop circle, but I haven't had that opportunity yet. But some of the designs are so beautiful. Are they a message to aliens? Are extraterrestrials trying to tell us something? I know that on one of the satellites they sent they sent some stuff about Earth, a record, and this, that, and the other, and they sent like a binary, basically saying what human beings are and our DNA and this, that, and the other, and a picture of our DNA code. And there was a crop circle that showed that very, very similar to the one that we sent, but the DNA code was different.
Really?
Yeah, the DNA code was different, and they can't work out how. They just can't work it out at all. Just cannot work it out at all. And there's also been crop circles have been found in snow.
Really?
Where there's no footprints, obviously, to get to, because obviously you'd have to get there to do it and do the snow circle. Sorry, there's even reports of them being in water. The water takes places. There was one place in Australia where a farmer was out on a four-wheeler buggy thing, and he heard this strange humming noise coming from part of this lake or reservoir, where it was really, really, part of it was all just basically reeds, and he managed to creep out and had a bit of a mooch about, and he could smell and taste like this metallic taste in his mouth, and smell it as well. And there was a crop circle in the reeds, and then he saw a silver disc flying away, and it had left this imprint of this swirly pattern in the reeds.
Really?
So what do you think about that?
I think that's crazy. They found radiation in some of these crop circles?
Yeah. It's like a microwave type radiation. But it's really strange because the stalks of wheat haven't been broken. They've just been sort of folded over. And have different types. They have different bits of stem, and the actual joint of the stem has been blown out, like it's exploded from inside, and they can't. I watched a program, and I think you probably find it on YouTube now. Some students from America, they investigated a crop circle. They took all the different, the radiation, the fact that the stems haven't been broke, and everything, and they made this contraption which fired out ion. They basically made the crop circle first without breaking the stems really, really carefully, and then they fired this charged sort of particles, which would give the radiation signature. But it took them. They tried to do it in a night, and they just couldn't do it. Because you bear in mind, you got to work in the dark.
Right.
Have you seen some of these crop circles, Tracy? Some of them are absolutely cool.
I actually went on last night to go to check some of them out, and it would take days and days to make these, especially considering how, like you said, mathematically speaking, how much math goes into making these perfect. That.
Excuse me.
So what would be the point, do you think?
I would like to think it's extraterrestrial. I really would.
Would you? That doesn't seem scary to you?
No, it doesn't. I don't know why. I would be, if they could prove tomorrow that they're all man-made somehow. There was a way to do them overnight in the dark. However difficult the pattern was, I would be really, really devastated.
I've seen some of the ones that humans make, and it takes them quite a while.
Yeah, but they don't look the same, do they?
No,
I don't think they look the same.
No, but they're pretty impressive. But it's for some reason, to think that they are real. That really, well, I guess I'm of two minds of that. Look how nice the aliens are, leaving us such pretty art. And B, is this a warning that we can't figure out what it's trying to say? And if so, that's scary to me. Yes, you can.
Okay, so before I say what I'm going to say, I'm more on the line of it's for the most part, a social experiment from the government. But with that being said, I do believe that, there are a lot of unexplainable cases, like you said, them popping up overnight and the radiation detection and all that. That's very peculiar. And I think the rough part of it is we know that people do fake them. So it kind of muddies the waters as far as the real ones go. But I think as far as whether they're real or not, also, I don't think should be the question that's asked. If they are real, what message do they hold? People like to talk about, is it a message from them? Well, like Rob said, the mathematics that go into it are very important. And as we know, mathematics are a universal wide language. That's what we send into space. That's what we do to communicate and kind of break the language barrier, mathematics. So if we could find some kind of uniform protocol that is accepted by the scientific community, which is, I don't think that's going to happen, but if we could find some kind of uniform protocol to measure these, geometrical designs and break them down in a mathematic form, that might hold a message for us. I don't know. I think it's the same exact thing that we would send out to them in mathematical equations in just a geometry form.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying. That if it is, and it's about the math, then what is the code that we are apparently not breaking? Or have we broken the code because it's the universal language, supposedly. I don't know how we know that. We've never, well, maybe we have talked to some aliens and asked them. But if we have figured it out, I guess they probably wouldn't tell us. They don't want us to be like, if they came out and said these are made by aliens and their messages to us, there would be mass. I mean, the rule of law would go out the window. It would be mass hysteria. Don't you think? I mean, like, if we knew that aliens were for sure coming here and they were leaving these messages, I think people would go, I don't have to pay my rent anymore, and I'm not going to pay my cable bill anymore. What I'm going to do is go hide in the mountains. I don't think they can tell us.
Jeremy, there is one chain of thought that they are actually leaving messages for each other. And then the messages aren't meant for us. What do you think about that?
I think that is just as acceptable as any other answers. I mean, we know about the Nazca lines, those ancient lines of Nazca that show, giant depictions of bumblebees and hummingbirds and antelope and stuff like that that just stretch miles along on this desert floor. And the scientific explanation for that is these things can't be seen from the ground as a message. They have to be seen from up above. So it's the same rule with crop circles. And I think, what do we have at our airports? We have insignia and lights and directions to show the planes above where to go or what to do. And I think that is that's a very good explanation for the crop circles as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. They can't be seen from. I'm looking at the Nazca lines, by the way. They can't be seen from below. They can only be seen from above, which is very strange considering the Nazca lines and how ancient those are. Who were they doing those for? And as far as airports and landings go, well, go to the Denver airport because that's the place to be. I'm going to go there. You guys are welcome to follow me. Yeah, who were these ancient people doing these for? It doesn't make sense if it was just for them. They couldn't see it. Jeremy, I'm talking to you.
That doesn't make sense.
But a lot of with the Nazca lines, a lot of them look like they could be. I mean, I know there's the monkey, the animals, and monkey, and the other ones that you mentioned. But they almost look. Well, they look like this to me. So, like runways. Like a. And I watched the program. Do you have a program over there called Ancient Aliens?
Yes.
They were talking, and they were at the Nazca lines, and they were saying that there was a mountain with basically it was flat along the top.
Yeah, that's the Incan one, right?
Yeah, but that had all the earth had been moved, or all the rock had been moved, and it had been flattened out, and there was lines right across it. Well, they couldn't explain where all the other rock, the rock that was taken away, where it was. I mean, we're talking of like maybe thousands of years ago. They didn't have the technology. Well, obviously they did have the technology,
right?
To do this.
Where is that? What, Jeremy? What is that mountain? Because we can still go. You can still go climbing that today. It's a very famous tourist attraction where the population just disappeared. Machu Picchu.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, a lot of things that we say they didn't have the technology for. which is, pyramids and the Great Phoenix and all these things, and we say, well, they didn't have technology for that, and then we make up what could have been done. When in reality, in the book of, why can't I think of the book in the Bible that talks about aliens? Enoch. He describes flying vehicles.
Yeah.
That are a round sphere inside of a round sphere with somebody sitting in it driving it. So, and I have been told by people that I grew up with in the religion I was raised in that, Enoch was probably Enoch. Is that his name, Enoch? Yeah. Enoch was probably just a drunk, and we should probably just ignore that whole part of the Bible. What? First off, that coming from an evangelical was like, wait a minute. Because most evangelicals believe like the Bible is the word of God, period. There's no deviation. It's not, what am I trying to say? Fables, it happened, period. So for her to say, and she's a very close member of my family, for her to say, oh, I think Enoch was probably crazy and we should just ignore that. What, we should ignore that because he was talking about alien spacecraft? Well, no, because there were also the Nephilim, which he talks about as well. We should ignore that. Well, no, because further down in the Bible, they talk about, David and Goliath. There was a giant. Well, that's what the Nephilim were supposed to be. So I think that if one is at all religious, and even if you're not, that when even the Bible talks about alien beings, that is one way that we would be able to see these things. Somebody would be able to see these things from the sky. It would excuse these writings in caves' walls that look like helicopters and spaceships, and would explain how they could get these big rocks from miles and miles away. Even at Stonehenge, these rocks are coming from 800 miles away. That's nearly it is. It's impossible to explain, and would take centuries. So, I think that throughout history, and even throughout religious history, if you're going by the Bible, there were beings here quite capable of helping to create these things. Which I don't know how that had to do with crop circles, but we do get off on these things. But it's too bad that so many people do fake crop circles, because I hate that it muddies the waters. Yeah. Maybe we should only take the crop circles that have radiation in them as being real.
Yeah.
And the fact that they pop up literally overnight.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's possible. You'd have to have hundreds and hundreds of people descend on your property in the middle of the night to do that. Don't you think?
Yeah. There's never any torches seen or anything like that, and you couldn't do it in the pitch dark.
Yeah, complete darkness. I don't know. I think it's a very weird way to communicate with us or somebody. Don't you think? I don't know, if you have a high technology, is that how you do it? What if we didn't have crops? Where would they put it? Oh, help me figure this out. I'm confused.
It's really difficult to sort of get your head around it, really, because it just doesn't nothing adds up for me, nothing makes sense. It's just, I want to believe in that, in the fact that there could be extraterrestrials who are responsible for some of them. And if it's the government might know, the government, I mean, we always end up back talking about the government, but like you said, maybe they do know. Maybe it's some kind of game that they're trying to play.
Well, Jeremy, you said you think that it could be some sort of social experiment. What does that mean?
I think there's ways that, I mean, if the alien phenomena is any bit truer than what the government's trying to tell us, which we can assume it is based on the evidence and based on the long history of it happening, it goes to show that they know about it. And if they know about it, how do they handle it? Well, they handle it by either calling people crazy who, say that it's a real thing, or they put out their own misinformation, or they try to disclose information in a kind of real world experiment to see how the public would handle such things. It's a drill in a way. I think that's where I stand on it.
I think we are on the brink of. I mean, I believe in extraterrestrials and I believe in aliens.
Oh, I do too.
I'm not sure. I think we could be getting. I think there could be other dimensions where they may be coming from, or they're coming from other planets, or both, maybe both. And I think we're on the brink of being told something. I think a lot of our TV and a lot of the films that are out now, there's so many films. I think we're being sort of got ready to be told, or for something to happen. That's what I think. I know that probably sounds a bit strange, but that's what I think.
Well, I believe in UFOs. I have a story on my page where I had an experience and saw one. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that they do something like this. Also, I think that probably the internet and the technology we have right now is really our government's worst enemy, because we can communicate in an instant with people about these type of subjects. And I think that the fact that they're being scrubbed off of Google, scrubbed off of YouTube, is frightening to me. That any theory that is opposing the government story is being scrubbed off of being able to be searched for. That, to me, in a free press, I'm supposed to live in a free country. We're supposed to have access to these things, but yet it's being scrubbed off from us being able to find it. And why is that? I think that things like, they say that like 85% of Americans now believe that John F. Kennedy was not killed by Lee Harvey Oswald. 87% of Americans. So much information has come out about the JFK assassination that I think that it slowly seeps in, and it's not terrifying and shocking anymore because it's slowly being accepted. Where if they at the time it happened, if they had said, okay, it didn't involve who you think it involved, and I just lost his name. Lee Harvey Oswald was actually a spy for the U.S. He was actually sent to Russia. He worked for Russia and then gave us information and went through that whole spiel. We would not have trusted the government, right? We would have been like, oh, shit. Now, if it can sort of leak out and leak out and leak out, we swallow it in tiny doses. We become used to it. And 85% of Americans accept the fact that that whole bullshit about JFK's assassination is a lie. And nobody is storming the government. We're just, passively accepting it. And maybe that is what's happening with the crop circles. Maybe we, like you said, we'll get more information and eventually we'll just passively accept it like sheep. And what better way for the government to still keep control of us, still have, accept that there's a level of distrust, but they're not admitting to any of it. So there's also the plausible deniability, but we just passively go, yes, these things are facts. There was a conspiracy to kill John F. Kennedy. Moving right along. That's not okay. It's not okay to be passive about these things.
I agree with you 100%. I had a massive, when I first started my group, I had this guy, he'd wrote a couple of books and he thought he was the bee's knees to do with the paranormal and conspiracies and this, that and the other. And I had a massive falling out with this guy. Because I said that, well, I think that I'm ready. If the government wants to turn around and tell me that aliens are true, and Bigfoot's true, and blah blah blah, I believe I am ready and able to take that information, and my head's not going to blow up. And he said, "Well, the government aren't doing it. The government are doing stuff to protect you." I said, "Well, they're not. The government are lying to me. I believe the government are lying to me. I don't believe half of what the government say." And I'm talking about my government now. I'm not talking about your government. But we're treated like children. Oh, and I don't like that. I don't like that. The fact that I'm not a child. I'm a grown up. Don't treat me like a child.
Right.
Tell us the truth. We can handle the truth.
Well, I think some people can handle the truth. You can't handle the truth. Sorry, I had to do that. I think some people can handle the truth, but I think there are people who would rather live in a world where everything's explainable, nothing is scary. I have to pay the rent tomorrow. And just go on like that. My life is just how it is, and they don't want to look outside of the box. And I think that the anger that sometimes comes from questioning events is actually fear manifesting itself in anger. They don't want to see your proof. They don't want to hear what you have to say. Stop it. And I think that's a fear response. Like if your 2-year-old runs away in a crowded area and you're just paralyzed with fear, and then you find them and you're like, oh my God, you're okay. And then, maybe you give them a swat on the butt. It's the same kind of thing, like you don't once the fear comes, once they let the fear come, how are they going to come back to a reality that they're living in right now? How are they ever going to do that? And how are they going to function with the knowledge that, if you go give all the information that the government knows all this stuff and has been lying to you, oh, geez, Rob.
Yeah.
Imagine the backlash. Everybody's going to reconsider everything they were ever told. You know, some people aren't passive. Some people aren't passive, and we go, wait a minute. If there is no atmosphere in the moon, how can you walk by it and have it ripple? The flag. Some of us aren't passive. Some of us can go, oh my God, these idiots, these conspiracy nuts. The astronauts walked by, duh. Or the flag was wrinkled. Stop talking about it. You know, some people like their little box, and some people aren't built that way. You know, and it's a scientific fact that there are differences in people's brains that cause certain types of people to react out of fear, even to the point where if they are shown a fact that doesn't align with their fear-based belief, a fact, a tangible, touchable fact, they will dismiss it as fake or untrue because it doesn't align with their fear-based reaction. And there's actually a difference in people's brains. So I think when you're dealing with a literal physical difference in a person's brain, when they react in fear and other people who react in more of a reasoned response, you're going to have some people who would go really nutty if you release the information. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I just doesn't rest easy with me the lies.
I understand. I agree with that. Although, like I've said before, if there are aliens that are regularly visiting us and a war is coming, I don't want to know that. I don't. Don't tell me. I don't want to be that guy in the movie who's trying to get everybody to believe them. I just want whatever laser comes out of their spaceship to hit me first. Just please. But I agree. I think a lot of people agree that they don't want, we're sick and tired of being lied to. Some people are sick and tired of being lied to about small things the government does. Some of us are sick and tired of being lied to about big things the government does. And we know they do it. We have proof about the Gulf of Tonkin. We have proof about, if you've ever gone to the site where JFK was assassinated, and I have been there. I live in Texas. It's in Dallas. I have been there. Jeremy's been there. Maya's been there. My whole family's been there. It's impossible to rationally think. There's two ways to do the shooting. One is a straight-on, head-on shot from that building. One is through a tree and around people and over this and that, and that's the one he took. Right. And 85% of the people in America now go, no, that didn't happen like that. So, maybe if people start saying, maybe that's what we need. Even though this stuff is being scrubbed from the internet, don't let it be. Talk about it. And show people proof. And some people are going to believe it, some people aren't. But maybe if we can get people talking about it and demanding that we're told or shown proof of this or that, maybe that's how we get there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would like to go to a crop circle, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to.
I'd like to go to the moon / Area 51.
Oh, I'd love to go there.
I'd like to find myself a petrified a piece of wood / moon rock.
Do you know what bothers me slightly? I look at I was born in 1968, and I look at the way we lived then, and we only had 3 channels on the TV, and we had a black and white telly, big huge thing, and like I've reached the age that I am now, and look at how far we've come. I could never, as a child, I could never even imagine the things we've got. You know, even what we're doing now. You know, you're thousands of miles away.
Right.
And I wonder, in another 50 years, which I'm probably not going to say, how far we will have come by then. That's what makes me a little bit sad. Because I think to myself, God, this, you know, we're moving forward so quickly. You know, and then, but if you think about from the end of the Second World War to the 60s and early 70s, we didn't really come very far, I don't think.
Mm-mm.
It's just that period of time, that 70s, 80s, and 90s to the 2000s. How far we've come, it's just crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, now I'm a little disappointed because now, as far as communications and stuff go, I am so excited to be alive in this time. You know, that I can talk to you and you're in England and you might as well be in my living room. It's so exciting that can happen. And, you know, on the other hand, there were so many other things promised. You know, we were supposed to live like the Jetsons and we were supposed to have flying cars by now and stuff. And I'm like, oh gosh, I'm going to miss that. I'm not going to see that happen. You know, I wanted a flying car. I wanted the Jetsons. But I tell my kids like the technology, I mean, there was a huge boom in technology, starting with like, you know, remote controls for TVs or microwaves, you know, that it just blew up. And I tell my kids things from when I was younger, and they're just like, oh my God, I can't even. Did you have to rub two rocks together to start a fire? Well, compared to now, yeah. You know, it feels like that.
Yeah.
But
crazy.
Anyway, if you guys have any questions that you would like to ask us, if we didn't answer anything that you would like to know the answer to, hold on a second. Oh yeah, and I will get to chemtrails at some other time. We're gonna have to do just a podcast with just chemtrails because, you know, here's what I'm gonna say to you right now. Don't go outside. Don't take deep breaths. You know, that's all I'm gonna say. It's for your own good. But anyways, if you guys have any questions that we didn't answer and we didn't cover, feel free to ask them now. And I have a Patreon. The button is on this page. It's never mandatory. I say this every single week. But if you feel in the deepest, darkest part of your heart that you need to donate to a Patreon, I would let you. Also, you can subscribe to this channel. And I think that pretty soon we're going to have some fun subscription kind of things going on with being able to call in and talk to us while we're doing the podcast, which would be fun. And, oh no, Mad Meerkat says we didn't talk about necrophilia tonight. Oh, what a disappointment. Maybe next week. Cross your fingers. Anyway, we're going to have some fun. Well, go ahead.
Maybe we could do a podcast that chemtrails lead to necrophilia if you take deep breaths.
Yeah, it's possible. Maybe I'll work it in somehow. I could work it in somehow. So I think we're going to have some fun things about being becoming a subscriber to this channel. Like I said, where you guys can call in and talk to us and give us your views and opinions. And then we are always in the talks about doing merchandise, which would be fun. I have to tell you that Rob has a Facebook page, and it is called Paranormal and Supernatural World, which I also called one of my segments on my channel this week, if you were paying close attention. And I have a Facebook page. It's called Exit Light. And let's see. Was there anything else that I need to cover? Rob, Jeremy, anybody else? Jeremy, hello?
You didn't tell that story about when Uncle Mike made a crop circle.
Oh gosh, I didn't get an Uncle Mike story in too. Well, maybe we'll tell Uncle Mike's necrophilia story next. Oh my gosh. He would kill me right now. Anyway, I guess that's all. And I want to tell you guys that this coming week, this is one other thing I want to say. Jory is going to be here, live and in color, in my living room. We are going to have a conversation, and that is going to be a lot of fun. And this next coming couple weeks, I have Jory coming. I have my daughter getting married, and it's going to be a little bit busy. So my friend Rob is going to be stepping in and taking some of the weight off my shoulders and doing a couple of videos for you guys on my channel. And I think that will be a lot of fun. For those of you who want to post things like, your voice makes me want to kill myself, or, ugh, your voice, I wish you'd kill yourself, that'll give you a break from me. And then we are going to start a 5-week podcast, like I said, a 5-week series about the whole 9/11 debacle, which is going to rock your world. And you guys can listen to what we're saying, listen to the facts. We're going to come at it, I really, really am going to try and do these like huge ones as middle of the road. Here's some opinions that I'm not necessarily going to call facts, but there are facts that are facts, and let you guys leave comments and discuss it with us and see what you think, because that would be a really awesome conversation. There's going to be 4 of us sitting at this round table, so to speak, and we're all going to have a bunch of different opinions, a bunch of different views of it. Rob's view from the UK, my view from the US, Jory's view as a young adult, and Jeremy's views as a younger kid. And I think that'll be fun. So I guess if that is it for everybody, it's time to say goodnight.
One quick thing, Mad Meerkat wants to know if Rob has seen The Ghoul.
Oh, yeah, Rob, tell him.
Yes, I started watching it, and I haven't finished watching it yet. It's not as scary as I remember.
Yeah, but guess what? I was talking to him on, I think, Facebook chat or something, and he was talking to me, and I said to him, "What is in your background? It sounds like you're in a horror movie." And he was watching The Ghoul. So there you go. He did. I'm a witness to that. Maya wants me to read something from the chat, but I'm not caught up in the chat. So Maya, can you tell me what I'm supposed to read, or Jeremy? Somebody? Oh, maybe it was the Ghoul part. Was it, Jeremy?
She said it was about Mad Meerkat.
Oh yeah, so it was the ghoul question. There was something else I was going to talk about. I don't know what it was, so I guess we're done. And we will see you here next week. Jory and I will see you here next week. And that's going to be crazy. Us in the same room. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Rob, thank you so much for being my guest host. Thank you for
my pleasure.
Entertaining us. And thank you to moderator Maya. And for producer Jeremy, who got to come in and talk to us. And I guess good night to you. Say good night, Rob.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.